Death, the one certainty in life, yet the one thing we fear the most. We avoid thinking about it. We whisper about it in hushed tones, and we push it to the farthest corners of our minds. But why? Why does the thought of our final moment fill us with such dread? Buddhist philosophy offers a profound answer. We fear death because we misunderstand it. We see it as an end, a loss, an irreversible void. But what if death was not the end? What if it was simply another transition, as natural as the changing of seasons? Today we will embark on a journey into the heart of Buddhist wisdom to uncover why death should not be feared. Along the way, we will explore ancient teachings, real-life stories, and practical ways to embrace life fully, without the shadow of fear hanging over us. Let us begin. The impermanence of all things. From the moment we take our first breath, we are moving toward our last. This is an undeniable truth. Yet in many cultures, death is seen as a tragedy, a dark cloud looming over the future. We resist it, fight it, and in doing so, we create suffering for ourselves. But the Buddha taught a different way. He reminded us of anicca, the law of impermanence. Nothing in this world remains the same. Flowers bloom and fade, rivers flow but never stay still, and even the tallest mountains are slowly eroded by time. Our bodies too are constantly changing. The cells we had as children are long gone, replaced by new ones. The person you were 10 years ago, your thoughts, your emotions, your very identity has shifted and evolved. Life is like a great river, flowing endlessly toward the ocean. The water you see before you is not the same water that was there a moment ago, yet the river remains. Likewise, we are ever changing, yet we cling to a fixed idea of self, as though we were unchanging stones in the current. But even stones are worn down by time, their edges softened by the gentle but persistent touch of the elements. A wise monk once told his students, "Imagine holding a candle in a dark room. The flame flickers, constantly changing shape, but is it not still a flame? Likewise, you are not the same person you were yesterday, yet you are still you." This simple truth is both humbling and liberating. If everything changes, then there is nothing to fear, for death is merely another transformation, not an obliteration. When we understand impermanence, we begin to see the beauty in transience. The cherry blossoms that bloom in the spring do not mourn their inevitable fall. They live vibrantly for the brief time they have. And so should we. Rather than resisting change, we should embrace it, knowing that each moment is precious precisely because it will not last forever. The poet Matsuo Basho once wrote, "The temple bell stops, but the sound keeps coming out of the flowers." This is the nature of life and death. Nothing truly ends, it simply takes another form. The laughter of a loved one echoes in our memories, the kindness we show ripples outward beyond our sight, and our very breath, once exhaled, becomes part of the air that nourishes another. So if we are constantly changing, then what is this self that we cling to so desperately? What are we truly afraid of losing? Perhaps the fear of death is not fear of an ending, but fear of the unknown. And yet have we not already crossed countless thresholds of the unknown? We did not fear birth, though it was a passage from one existence to another. Why then should we fear death, which is but another doorway? Impermanence is not something to grieve, it is something to celebrate. It means that pain is not eternal, that sorrow will pass, and that new joys will always emerge. It means that every sunrise is a new beginning, and every sunset a gentle reminder to cherish what we have, while we have it. Perhaps the question is not how to avoid death, but how to live so fully that when it comes we can greet it like an old friend. without fear, without regret, only gratitude for the fleeting but beautiful gift of existence. The illusion of the self. One of the deepest teachings in Buddhism is anatta, the concept of no fixed self. We believe we are this body, this mind, this collection of memories and experiences, but in reality, what we call me is just a temporary formation, like a wave rising and falling in the ocean. Imagine standing at the shore, watching the waves roll in. Each wave rises, crests, and dissolves back into the vast ocean. No single wave is permanent. It exists for a moment, shaped by the forces around it, and then disappears. Yet the ocean remains. This is the nature of self. We appear, change, and fade, but existence flows on. A wise monk once told a grieving woman a simple but powerful lesson. She had lost her husband and was consumed by sorrow. The monk bent down, scooped up a handful of sand, and let it slip through his fingers. "Can you hold on to the sand forever?" he asked. The woman shook her head, tears glistening in her eyes. "Then why do you try to hold on to something that was never truly yours to begin with?" We cling to identities, relationships, and the idea of a fixed self, believing they define us. But everything we call me is in flux. The body ages, thoughts shift, emotions ebb and flow. Who we were yesterday is not who we are today, and who we are today is not who we will be tomorrow. If we truly grasp this, we begin to loosen our grip on fear, the fear of loss, the fear of death, the fear of change. It all stems from clinging to something impermanent. When we let go of the illusion of a permanent self, we also let go of the fear of death. Because if there is no fixed me to hold on to, then what is there to lose? Consider the caterpillar. It crawls through life, unaware that one day it will become something entirely different. When the time comes, it surrenders itself to transformation, dissolving into a formless state before emerging as a butterfly. From the caterpillar's perspective, this could seem like death, yet it is not the end, but a transition into something new. Just like the caterpillar, we too are in a constant state of transformation. Life is not about preserving who we are, but embracing who we are becoming. The more we fight this truth, the more we suffer. But if we surrender to it, if we accept that nothing is truly ours to keep, we find a profound sense of freedom. Think of a river. It never holds on to a single drop of water, yet it continues to flow, vibrant and full of life. This is how we should approach existence, not by clinging, but by flowing with the current of change. This realization does not mean we should not cherish life, love deeply, or form meaningful connections. On the contrary, it makes these things even more precious. Knowing that nothing is permanent allows us to be fully present. We no longer take moments for granted. We love not because we fear losing someone, but because we know each shared moment is a gift. So if we are not our bodies, our thoughts, or our identities, then what are we? We are the awareness that experiences it all. We are not the waves, we are the ocean, and the ocean does not fear the rise and fall of a single wave. This is the freedom the Buddha spoke of, the liberation from suffering that comes when we awaken to the truth of impermanence. It is not a concept to be understood intellectually, but a truth to be lived. When we embrace it, we no longer see death as an enemy, but as a natural part of existence. We stop fearing change, and instead flow with it, finding peace in the knowledge that nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed. Death is not the end, but a transition. The Buddha often compared death to changing clothes. When a set of robes becomes old and worn, we discard it and put on a new one. Similarly, when our physical body is no longer useful, our consciousness moves forward, shaped by the karma we have created. Death in this sense is not an annihilation but a transformation. It is a doorway, a bridge that carries us from one existence to another, much like the sun dipping below the horizon, only to rise again in a new dawn. The essence of who we are, the awareness, the energy, the consciousness, does not disappear. It simply shifts into another form. There is a famous parable about a traveler who comes to a great river. He cannot turn back, but he fears the journey across. Then he sees a raft and carefully paddles to the other shore. The river symbolizes the transition of death. The raft is the wisdom and good karma we cultivate in this life. When we reach the other shore, we realize we were never truly lost. Much like this traveler, we stand at the edge of the unknown, hesitant, fearful. But the Buddha reminds us that if we have lived with kindness, mindfulness, and wisdom, our transition will be peaceful. Death is not something to be dreaded. It is simply another phase in our journey. Imagine a candle lighting another candle. The first flame does not vanish. It simply continues in a new form. The fire of our existence moves forward, carried by the winds of our karma. The more good we do in this life, the brighter the light that carries us onward. If we live with love and compassion, we create ripples that extend beyond this life. A kind word, a selfless act, a moment of genuine connection, all these leave an imprint far greater than our physical existence. In that sense, nothing truly dies. The energy we put into the world continues, just as a melody lingers even after the last note has been played. Instead of fearing death, we should focus on living well, so that when our time comes we can leave this world, not with regret, but with a heart full of peace. What matters is not how long we live, but how deeply we live. It is not the years in our life, but the life in our years. So when the time comes, we can step forward with grace, like a leaf drifting gently to the earth, knowing that nothing is truly lost, only transformed. Let us not fear death, but embrace it as part of the great cycle of existence. The pain of attachment. One of the greatest sources of suffering is not death itself, but our attachment to life, to our loved ones, our possessions, our identity. We fear losing what we have built, the relationships we cherish, and the self-image we have spent a lifetime creating. But attachment is like holding a burning coal in our hand. It only causes us pain. The Buddha taught that true freedom comes when we learn to let go. We can love our family deeply without clinging. We can cherish life without being enslaved by the fear of its end. A Zen master once asked his students, "If you could live forever, would you still value each moment?" The students thought for a moment and then shook their heads. It is precisely because life is temporary that it is so precious. Imagine walking through a garden, knowing the flowers will wither tomorrow. Would you not take in their beauty more deeply? Would you not appreciate the fragrance more fully? This is the paradox of attachment. It blinds us to the present by making us fixate on the future. A mother once clung desperately to her dying child, tears streaming down her face as she pleaded for just one more day, one more moment. A monk nearby gently took her hand and said, "If you had 10 more days, would that be enough?" The mother hesitated, then shook her head. "No, it would never be enough." The monk smiled sadly. "Then, let today be enough." Attachment keeps us trapped in a cycle of longing and fear. We fear losing people, but in truth, we never truly own them. They, like us, are passing through this world. The love we share, the moments of laughter, the warmth of a touch, these are the treasures of life, and they do not belong to us. They are gifts, fleeting yet beautiful. Instead of holding on tightly, we can learn to embrace the present with an open heart, to love without trying to possess, to live without grasping at permanence. Only then can we be truly free. A river does not cling to the water that flows through it. It simply lets it pass, knowing that new waters will always come. This is the lesson of non-attachment: to let life flow, to cherish without clinging, and to love without fear. When we release our grip, we do not lose life. We experience it more fully. We do not love less. We love more freely. We do not become empty. We become open to the infinite beauty of the present. And when our time comes, we do not leave with hands clenched in resistance. We go with peace, knowing we lived, we loved, and we let go. Living without fear, many Buddhist monks meditate daily on their own death, not as a morbid exercise, but as a practice of acceptance. They reflect on it, embrace it, and in doing so, free themselves from its grip. One such monk, who had spent decades in meditation, was asked what he feared most about death. He smiled and said, "Fear? There is nothing to fear. It is like stepping from one room into another. The light does not disappear. It only moves." To live without fear is to live with full awareness, to understand that death is not an interruption, but a continuation of the cycle of existence. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast ocean. Some may see it as an end, an abyss of uncertainty, but those who have cultivated wisdom see it differently. It is merely the merging of a small stream into something infinite and boundless. Through mindfulness, we too can cultivate a mind that is not troubled by death, but instead embraces it as part of the great unfolding of life. A leaf does not tremble as it falls from the tree in autumn, for it knows that decay is the beginning of renewal. Similarly, we can step forward without fear, knowing that life and death are not opposites but intertwined aspects of a grander journey. When we shift our perspective, fear dissolves. Instead of clinging to each moment out of dread, we learn to savor it fully. Instead of running from the inevitable, we walk toward it with grace. This is the essence of Buddhist wisdom: not to escape death, but to live so fully, so vibrantly, that when the time comes we do not resist, but simply let go, like a candle passing its flame to another before it fades. To live without fear is not to deny death, but to embrace life so completely that death holds no power over us. And when that moment arrives, we will not meet it with resistance, but with peace, with understanding, and with the quiet certainty that nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed. Embracing the present. If death is inevitable, then the only true response is to embrace the present moment. Life unfolds in the here and now, and yet so often we live in either the past or the future, dwelling on memories, regrets, or anxieties about what is to come. But the only time we truly have is now. Imagine a traveler who spends his entire journey looking back at the path he has walked, or anxiously peering ahead, worrying about what lies beyond the next hill. He never truly experiences the beauty of where he is. This is how many of us live, trapped in time that no longer exists or has yet to arrive. Buddhist wisdom teaches us to break free from this cycle. Each breath, each sensation, each interaction is a gift. When we drink tea, let us truly taste it. When we speak to a loved one, let us truly listen. When we watch a sunset, let us take it in without distraction. Presence is the gateway to peace. As the Buddha once said, "Do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future, concentrate the mind on the present moment." This is not just a poetic ideal, but a practice, a way of living that dissolves fear and fills each day with meaning. When we embrace the present, we realize that life is not about accumulating more time, but about making the time we have truly matter. In this realization, fear fades, and we learn to live fully, vibrantly, and without hesitation. The freedom in letting go, the true liberation from the fear of death, is not found in avoidance or denial, but in embracing the beauty of impermanence. When we understand that nothing truly belongs to us, not our bodies, not our possessions, not even our relationships, we begin to experience a freedom unlike any other. To live fully means to release our grip on the illusion of permanence and instead welcome the ebb and flow of life with open arms. The wind does not mourn the leaves it carries away, nor does the river grieve the water that flows through it. It simply moves forward, endlessly transforming, endlessly becoming, and so must we. When we relinquish fear, we make space for gratitude. When we cease to cling, we find peace. In the grand scheme of existence, life is but a single breath in the vast cosmos, yet within that breath lies infinite possibility. So let us walk this path with lightness, with grace, and with the quiet confidence that nothing is ever truly lost, only changed, only continued, only reborn in another form, in another time, in another way.